Hey, what's going on? Wherever you at, this is KLA Cloud the Wanderer. About to give it to you once again. I have a special guest. He's the creator of Dream Fury Comics. How you doing, Newton?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you. Yeah, I pass through, I be looking at Instagram and, I kind of came across, yeah, Dream Fury Comics and, I caught interest of, KISHA, the demon eater.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
look,
she's been really popular with people, just the visual of how she looks and her name. So people's been really gravitating to her and the story.
yeah. How you came up with this?
Yeah, I wanted to create a story that my daughters can enjoy. I have two daughters. They're currently 18 and 19. But when I started this, I think they were 17 and 16. And I wanted a story
Yeah,
that they would really be interested in reading. Because my first story was Crescent City Monsters, and that story, is something that everybody loved. But my girls are more into like manga, and so initially my thought was, okay, let me create a strong female lead that my daughters can actually um would enjoy reading. So that was the basis of it, and so Keisha was born. And then as I was thinking about it, I was doing some research, and I hadn't really come up with the character yet. It was just the idea of like, this is what I wanted to do, and so that was in the back of my mind. And then I was doing some research on African demons, and I came upon this one African demon, and his name was Kishi. And I was
mm,
reading about him on Wikipedia, and he's from Angolian lore, right, mythology. And he was when I read about him, I was like, wow, this is a really interesting demon. So basically, Kishi, he's a demon. He's got like a regular face, like a human face, and he's got hyena in the back of his head. And I was like,
mm,
wow, that's wild. And unlike like this particular demon, he would seduce women, right? And then have his way with them and whatnot. So I was like, man, that's a crazy demon. I mean, like that was like something like really specific. And so I was like, well, I want to include this guy because that's like something. I'm into horror, right? And that's really something horrific. Um, but then I asked myself, well, what if he um all these women he gets involved with have demons, his demon sons, and he has this one demon daughter. And a lot of my stories begins with a lot of like what ifs, right? And so I asked myself, what if he had these sons and just one daughter, and her name is Keisha, right? It's a play on his name, right? Because his name is Kishi. And so I said, well, what if he hated his daughter because all he wanted was sons, right? And I was like, okay. But then I was like, I wanted to take it a step further to show um how crazy his demon daughter is, right? Like father, like daughter. So I said, well, what her logic is thinking like, well, my father doesn't love me. That's because of all my brothers. So she starts eating her brothers, right? Her other demon brothers.
mm,
And so that's where the demon eating comes in from. She starts consuming her brothers, and she gets stronger, right? The more
right,
brother of her brothers that she eats, she just gets stronger. So she starts easily overpowering her brothers and eating them. And so her father gets upset and traps her, and then traps her. And then fast forward to the future, Keisha accidentally, a human Keisha accidentally releases demon Keisha, and so they merge, and that's where the story begins.
Wow, that's a lot, man. Wow,
Yeah,
is she a hero? Is so like so she has to like is she a hero or she's like an anti-hero or something like that?
no, so she's a hero, right? So what happens is Keisha, when Keisha gets possessed by a demon, Keisha, her family sends her to an aunt who knows how to exercise or get rid of demons. But when she gets to her aunt's town, she can't escape, and she sees it's full of monsters. So she actually needs the demon within her to survive and battle the monsters. So now she's caught in a situation where the very thing she's trying to get rid of is the thing that she needs to stay alive. And so we have a situation where the demon is obsessed. Demon Keisha is obsessed with human Keisha. So she starts to get into her mind and play all these mind games with Keisha, and
Oh,
then while Keisha has to also um, deal with the monsters within the town. So it's an interesting story where it's a mental story where somebody has to literally deal with the demons within them, you know,
yeah.
while they
I,
battle
I I think I
monsters.
get it.
Yeah,
So she has to fight her own demons.
yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah,
And yeah, while she's fighting the monsters. So because like demons in her head and she knows certain things about Keisha, so she'll bring certain things up to make Keisha mentally weak, right? And
yeah,
susceptible to her influence, because the last thing the demon wants is to get out of Keisha's body. She feels this strong attachment to Keisha. They got the same name, and she's like trying to like get her to say, hey, you know what? You need me, right? You shouldn't get rid of me because of this and because of that, and we're destined to be, come together, as one entity. So there's a lot of that, and so Keisha struggles with that. And so like I said, it's just really literally like someone fighting their inner demons while they're
yeah.
fighting the external world of monsters.
What was like the process of creating this?
So it's a lot of like when I sit down and think about my stories, what I do is one of the things that one of the questions I try to answer is like, why should anyone care about this character, right? Because it's cool that she's got a demon inside of her, and the demon eats other demons, and she's going around doing all this cool stuff. But really, like, what the most important part is like the powers and whatnot is not really the most important thing. Really is like why would anybody be interested in this character? What makes her different? What makes like people say, wow, okay, I want to see what I want to see what she's going through and how she gets through it, right?
Yeah,
For me, that's the most important part. So my process is figuring that out. So I'll ask myself questions like, well, in her situation, what would happen, and create certain scenarios to challenge her and have her struggle and figure certain things out. So that's the general process of it. A lot of a lot of people ask, oh, how do you get your ideas, like specific ideas? I couldn't tell you. They just pop up
it
in my
just
head,
come.
right?
Yeah,
But the general process of creating the characters in the story, that's basically how I do it.
yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I think I can relate to it. For some reason, I don't know why it kind of I don't know if this is the word I'm looking for, correlates to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know why. Because I guess because Buffy, she was kind of finding herself. She was like the Slayer, and she had to um she had to be the chosen one, and you know at a certain time that they have a limit to like the slayers, they had a limit to be alive and stuff.
Mhm.
But then as the story progress, it kind of, she finds a way to kind of stay alive. Like at one point she dies, and then she comes back from the dead, and then it was some other stuff too. But I because she do fight like vampires and demons, so I don't know why it just kind of like a little pieces of it, and like maybe like in my everyday life, like I would say I battle demons every day because
Right,
it's
right.
different emotions and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know yeah, like, so yeah, I could say I could relate to that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, thanks. That's the most important part of it for me. Like, I don't want anyone to just look at it and think like, oh, this is a story about a female, or just a story about a black female. Now, that was important to me. That was an important aspect.
right,
But at the same time, I want people to relate to her as a person. So, like, in the general scope of it, just the struggles that you face, like you said, with it, everyone faces, struggles with their inner demons, things that that they may not want to talk about or even think about. So, how do you deal with that? How do you battle that? And I wanted to do it in a realistic way that that's not pretty. Not like you could
yeah,
just put a little nice little ribbon on it and wrap it up and say, well, this is the story, and this is how it ends, and it's it's everything's clean thing. It's gonna be a gritty story, but at the same time, it's not gonna be like too like unnecessarily bloody or gory. But I just love dark stories that go into the human psyche.
yeah,
um, and to kind of explore that, because there's a lot of times when people go into darkness, not necessarily like a depression or anything, because there are people who have really deep depressions, but um everyone not everyone has goes through a depression, but everybody goes through times when things are dark for them, right? And the situations vary, right? It could be due to internal things, right? Things that happen internally with them, mentally, or external things happening to them, and affecting them psychologically. So everybody goes through that. So I always like exploring that and writing about it, because it's pretty much like how you have the blues, right? Back in the days, and even now, when the blues were when you had the blues, most of the blues were about people going through some kind of hardship, right? Whether it's
yeah,
because of love, or some family struggle, right? And so to me, that was like, okay, the idea of writing about that is not just something that's just limited to comic books, but that's something universal that people need to express or even write about, or see. So possibly, I think like maybe, hey, well, if they read this, they might not feel alone in their struggles with their darkness, right? Even though it's not a real story, it still can help you mentally to be able to cope with whatever you're going through.
yeah. What I kind of want to go back with the what Keisha's identity, like of a black face,
Hmm.
like, because we like in the age of wokeness, and like especially like comic book characters, they're being like blackwashed, like like a Superman, a black
Mhm.
Superman, or a black
Mhm.
Batman, and
Right.
and this one it's original and stuff.
Mhm.
So I like the idea. It's not like a gender woke type of thing. It's more really like you just want to make it into a story that people can relate to. Yeah. Do
Yeah, I like to try to create original characters, something different, something that you wouldn't see in the major two comic book companies. And I'm not the only creator of that. Of course,
right.
there's a big renaissance of other black creators doing that too. So I feel
Yeah.
like I'm part of that tidal wave. There's a ton of them doing that right now, and like I said, I'm not the only one. So it's just a matter of people discovering other created black creators creating black characters and doing some really excellent work. Like I said, I'm not the only one. There's a ton of people, other people doing it. So it's just a matter of looking for them. If people are saying, "Hey, I don't see this. I don't see you know this black character." It's not that hard. Just search the internet, and you'll see
Yeah.
a
I
ton. Like I said, I feel like there's it's a tidal wave of black creators just creating some really excellent work. And it's just not me, it's other creators too. So do you just Google search and
right.
you'll be reading for a while, which is the great thing. So you don't really need to when people when people criticize, I'm not really I don't really have a problem with some of the things that they do, um, but at the same time, I'm more of a that Marvel and DC does that some people call wokeness. I don't really have a problem with it, but at the same time, I'm more of a hey, let's create, like you said, let's create original characters. Let's support independent creators who are creating original characters that you can really enjoy. And like I said, and I'm going to repeat this again because it's really important. These creators are creating really top notch books, like really great stories, great artwork that rival Marvel and DC. So and they're easy to find and support. So anybody who's complaining about what they're doing, they can just, support these black indie creators.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I so far I've been interviewing like I would say like several comic book creators. I think the last
Mm.
one I was talking to they they created Black Breakthrough Comics.
Okay, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and another one, like it was this woman. She started Kente Comics, where she
Okay.
introduces Firebird. Like it's like a space fantasy superhero thing. It was cool. Like I've been seeing it, like taking notice of it with a lot of you know black creators and stuff like that, writers and
Hmm.
artists and stuff. So I kind of wanted to reach out and be curious because a while back, I would say that I wrote like a comic. I try to create like comics a bit. Like I
Okay,
would write a
okay.
story.
Hmm.
Yeah, I took a class like years ago, and I went to the School of Visual Arts, but it was a
Oh,
course.
okay.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was like 3 months, and we had to come up with a story, and then we would like make a layout and like draw and do the actual drawings and stuff like that. I remember I created something about this dude. He came from prison, and then he did like 30 years. He came out, and so he witnessed a murder by these kids. They had these. high tech weapons and killing cops and all that stuff.
Mm.
But it was just for the class and stuff. And then I remember I created this other story where this chick, she was like a slave, and she was from another galaxy. It's like a Princess Leia type thing and stuff
Okay.
like that. But yeah, I never really fleshed it out, or like, because it seemed like it's a lot. Like it takes time and stuff, and I didn't really think that I could really execute it to a point where it could go further or anything like that. So sometimes I just left it alone. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so three things, that's pretty good. You should maybe try again. That's the first thing, and then second thing is I love the fact that your stories are not just superhero stories. That's another thing. That's the second thing because comic books aren't always just superhero stories. They're all types of stories. So you know um I love that. And just in terms of the third thing I wanted to point out in or respond to with from what you just said is, yeah, like the fleshing things out is the hard part. Coming up with the story idea, the idea for the story, to me is
Right.
really the easy part. Like people come to me and be like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And for the most part, I'm like, yeah, it's a good idea, but executing the idea the right way, always, that's the hard part. Because sometimes you have a story that, like, if I listen to it, like the idea, I'm like, so it's an okay idea, it's not a bad idea. But when I
Yeah.
see it executed, I'm like, wow, this is genius. Like the way he did the story, like, da, 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 and then then other times it's like flipped, where like you have this really great idea, but the execution of it wasn't really wasn't really good. So like where you see like, oh, they had potential, it just like doesn't really live up to that potential. So like you said, like it really is the execution part of an idea is the
Mhm.
hard part. So like a lot of times people will be, like I said, they'll like say, hey, I have this idea, da, da, da. um and that's that, and they'll ask me like, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. But I always say it's a good idea because for the most part, people come up with good ideas, but the like I said, it's always the execution of those ideas that's the super difficult part of it. Because you need to make your story tight, you need to make the characters good, and then like there's always like stories like sort of need like a theme or feel to it. Same
Yeah.
like a movie. Like you have to decide like, okay, well, how am I gonna make this book feel? I'm not sure what the technical writing term for it is. Maybe it's the theme of the story, but there's like a feel to the movie, or like I should say the book, that you want to go for. And you gotta try to you have to kind of like figure that out. So yeah, those are the three things I wanted to say about what you had just said. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah.
Let me showcase like this artwork, because I mean
Oh
it's really tight. Now,
yeah.
like what's the name of the person that did this artwork?
Yeah, so a big shout out to like my partner in crime. His name is Giancarlo Bernal. He hails
Yeah,
from the Philippines. There's yeah, if you go back to the last picture, like there's a watermark. Yeah, is
this
on
one.
the right hand side. Yeah, that's his name. Oh, and on the bottom of this too, you kind of see it. So that's
Oh,
Gian,
okay.
Gin Carlo
Ben,
Bernal. And
Banal.
his
Okay.
full name is Giancarlo, and then he's got B Bernal, like B initials B Bernal. So his name is
Yeah.
even longer than that, but I think he usually just go by Giancarlo Bernal.
Where's he
So yeah,
from?
He hails from the Philippines. He's
Oh,
just
okay.
an amazing artist. I've been fortunate to I was fortunate to find him.
Yeah,
He and I work well together. So we worked both on Crescent City Monsters and KISHA Demon Eater. So I'm his biggest fan, and he's my biggest fan. So um, I think we both kind of like admire each other works, and there's a synergy, and we feed off each other's work. Like he gets excited when he reads the stuff that I write, and the things, the world that I'm setting up, and of course, when I look at his artwork, I'm just always blown away. When he gave me the first page of Crescent City Monsters, I knew I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my gosh. I just knew, like, wow, I just had this really
it's
amazing
different.
artist. Um and
It's
so I knew that the book was going to be special. And once I saw the first page that he did, it kind
yeah,
of inspired me to write, you know, in a way that reflected his drawings. So like when I saw like what he could do, I was like, okay, and I started writing, in a way that I thought, but I didn't. It wasn't something that I did on purpose. It was like something that was in the back of my head. It was like inspiration.
yeah.
It
I'm
was like
sorry.
I was, yeah,
Yeah, you can
yeah.
continue.
Yeah, his drawing was like inspiration to me. So it wasn't like I was purposely writing for his art style or the way he was drawing. Once I saw his artwork, it was like inspiration, and I started, and it helped me write in a way that like fit his illustrations. Like I was like, I started just like drawing in a way that not I'm sorry, not drawing, sorry, it felt like I was writing in a way that matched his illustrations. So big up to my artist, Giancarlo Bernal. He's amazing. He's both the artist on Keisha Demon Eater and Crescent City Monsters.
That's cool. How did you guys did you reach out to him or what?
Yeah, I was looking for an artist, and the way I really look for work with artists initially is like I'll see something that they did online, and then I'll reach
Yeah,
out to them and ask them for a commission to draw me a commission, and to kind of get a feel of like what their communication style is, how quickly they draw, and how we work together, because that's really important. Because uh if you're creating a book with someone, there's got to be some kind of dynamics where it feels natural. It feels like, okay, I could work with this person, because the way we communicate is good, and it's so like once we started working together, I was like, okay, this is good, because I found him on a website called Deviant Art, and when I saw his portfolio, I saw he was actually the illustrator for this one comic book I had backed on Kickstarter. So I was
mm,
like, "Oh, this is the dude who drew this comic book that I had bought on Kickstarter." So this is good because he's got that experience, and his artwork is really good. So I reached out to him and asked him to do a commission for me, um this monster. And when he came back with it, I was like, damn. I was like, this is fire. It was kind of crazy, because like what he had drawing for me was like better than what I seen on his portfolio. Like it was like really good. I was like, man, this
Mhm.
is even better than what anything I've seen on his portfolio. So I was like, all right, cool. And then I was like, hey, are you interested in doing this book? And he was like, yeah. And so, like I said, like as he started, as the pages started coming in, I didn't realize like how good of an artist he was until like the pages really started coming in. Then I saw the second page, and I saw the third page, and I was, I started like, man, I was like, I just like, I was like, just really like I felt fortunate that that I had found an artist with such great talent, and I was like really like wow, I'm surprised he's not working for Marvel or DC. But I'm just glad he and I are working together. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a blessing.
it definitely is a blessing. So yeah, I just took the long way to answer your question. I found him on DeviantArt, and then I reached out to him. That's the
Nah,
that's the short answer.
it's cool because I've been to a comic book convention, and it's not easy, like showcasing your work to other artists, and they give you these hard criticisms and stuff like that, and so yeah. Um,
It's hard to find it's hard to find artists too, because a lot of them that you want to work with, usually they're busy.
yeah,
Like I think back when I started, which was like 6 years ago, it would have been a little bit. It was a little easier to find really like artist, like something that someone you wanted to work with, and say, hey, you know, and who matches the style, because like there are particular styles of artwork, like Gene does this really complicated, beautiful artwork, and which fits the book and it's gritty. Sometimes you might want something a little bit simpler, but you still need like a good artist. Like you, so like it's crazy because like artists who draw like in really great details are really good. You can find really good ones, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have artists who don't have a lot of lines, but their artwork is still fire. It's crazy, right? Because it's like opposite ends of the spectrum, but um, you could tell that the artist, even with the simple lines and the less details, that they're really good artists, and that's what I love about comic books because there's so many different art styles to fit like different stories. So like it depends on the story that you're going for, and like you might want a particular art style. So like back then I think it was easier to find artists. Like 6 years ago I would say it was easier to find artists online that for whatever particular art style that you're going with. But now I think because of like it really there's like I said, since there's been more of an influx of like indie creators and people who
yeah,
have kind of really mastered or not mastered, but there's a template for like that people can follow now for creating your own comics, doing a Kickstarter and whatnot. There's like a lot more information. So now artists who are there are artists who are more in demand, like really good artists are like are busier than ever. Like there are waiting lists. Like I'll reach out to an artist and a lot of them are busy. They're just like, sorry, I can't get to you," and they'll be like, there's like a 6 months a year waiting period before they're probably
yeah,
they're available. Yeah, so it's getting a little harder that way. But you can still find good artists. It's just a matter of looking.
yeah. How did you know that you had when did you know that you wanted to do comics? Was you always creative writing, or like when you was a kid,
Yeah.
or?
when I was when I was younger, this was like when I was in the fifth and sixth grade. So this was like, I guess that's 10 and 11.
Yeah.
That's when I really got into comic books. Like I remember the two comic book people in the class, like they were really into comics. And they were kind of they were kind of like the people kind of influence on the comics I read, like especially that's how I became more of a Marvel person, because those
Right.
two guys in my class, they were Marvel people. And the interesting thing is like people who read comics like like in like, I guess, in the environment, the school, whatever you call it, thing, weren't like considered like nerdy people, because they were like, even though they were into comics, it wasn't like they were called nerds. You know what I mean? I guess the big thing too is because that's not all they talked about. Like comics was like they didn't talk about comics every day, all day, but they were
Yeah.
really into comics. So, like if they saw you into comics too, they'd be like, "Oh, you should read this and this." So really got me into reading and collecting comics. So I became through them. I became like a big Marvel head. I was reading a lot of Marvel comic books. I think specifically the first comic book set of comic books I started buying was Secret Wars, like the original Secret Wars from
Mm.
back in the days. And I was like, I was just kind of blown away. I was like, yo, this is dope. And so I started like drawing comic books, right? And I would like I would take like loose leaf paper, fold in half, and then like draw like draw like these little mini comics. And they were like really like they weren't really like any good comics, because basically like the plot was like they were hanging in their headquarters. They got some kind of like signal that said, "Oh, the bad guys are here." So then they would go fight the bad guys, and that was pretty much it. so so it was like the like the dopest of comics, but I mean, it wasn't really like in that comic. It took me a while
Yeah.
to develop stories, but I was just starting off. And so I would draw the comics, and I would it was one time when I started selling the comic books, because I had one classmate. She saw I was doing comics. She was like, you know what, um if you give me the comics, my mom, where she works, she has a photocopier. I can make copies for you, and then
Mm.
you can sell more of the comics, because at that time, I wouldn't copy the comics again. I would just have one comic and sell it to one person. And I was like, oh, I was like, okay, yeah, 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 yeah. If you did that, and then she was like, I want a percentage. Smart girl. So it's like that was like the first my first intro to like real business, because she was like she was real smart. She was like, "But I want a percentage of the sales." And then I remember one kid, he would always buy my comics, um, and because his mom saw what I was doing, right? I never met his mom, but he was like, here, let me buy another comic. I showed it to my mom, and she said she really liked
Yeah.
what you're doing. And so she was like encouraging, me indirectly. Like I never met her, but because I guess she saw what I was doing, she wanted to encourage that. And so she started giving her son money to for me to buy comics. And I started feeling like, so that's where it kind of like developed. Like I was like, okay, here I am. And I had a name for my comic company. I call it Mini Comics, because they were like small little comics. And so
Yes.
and then I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm selling comics, da, da, da. But that was short lived, mainly for two reasons. Because first, like um it was like it was like something that I couldn't really picture the path for. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't something like I can say, oh, I created for whatever reason. I didn't realize that like that was an option for me when I got older, right? Like, oh, I
Yeah.
just to create comic books. And then the other reason was like my brothers, they used to draw and like create their own comics too. And as time went on, they got their drawings got better. Like they like artistically, they my brothers really could draw, but I was like, I like stagnated at one point, and I was like, they kept like like this,
Yeah, it's not easy. It's
huh?
not easy.
Yeah,
No,
so
I
I
said
became
it's not easy.
yeah, it's not. And I was like, oh, I was like, so I felt like, okay, talent wise, I wasn't really meant to draw comics. And like separating drawing and writing at that time, I didn't really, that wasn't, I didn't think like, oh, well, I'll start just writing focus on writing comics. To me, they went at that time, it was like hand in hand because I was drawing in, creating my own comics. So I was like, I became a lot discouraged. So I was like, maybe, doing comics isn't for me. And at the same time, that's when I started getting into computer programming. So, and that was like a clearer path in terms of like, oh, when I get older, I'm just going to become a computer programmer, so
Yeah,
that was like more of like, okay, that's where I'm going to be headed. And then but as the years went on, when I went to high school, I took creative writing classes, and I really like writing. And then I would still write. And then my brothers and we had the habit of like pitching ideas to each other. But the crazy
right.
thing is like we never really wrote the ideas out. We would just like say, "Yo, what about this idea?" And then we would like kind of like pitch the idea to each other. And like so we did that like until like even until now, so we'll be pitching ideas to each other, and we've been doing that for like forever. So there's always been like pitching story ideas. The ideas of for stories were always in my head, and it wasn't necessarily
Right.
like, oh, I'm going to do a comic book based on the story, or I'm going to write this story, because we knew we never wrote it. It was just for some reason, like I guess we had intentions of somehow getting the story out, when we pitched it to each other. But I don't think it was necessarily like we were gonna write it or necessarily do a comic book. Well, maybe we were gonna do a comic book about it, but we never really got up to that point until like way later in life, when I was like when I got older, and I was like, you know what? It's time that I
Mm,
do this, because like I said, I started backing some projects on Kickstarter, and I saw other
yeah.
people creating their own comics, and I was like, man, after all these years, it's time that I start fulfilling this childhood dream I had from when I was young, and start creating comics. But then I knew, like, okay, you could write a comic book. You don't need to draw the comic book. You could find an artist, and then so I try to learn as much as I could before I started. And so once I felt comfortable, like I had a game plan for not just writing the comic book, but being able to produce it and get the book out there. Then I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. So yeah, that I mean, again, that's the long version.
No, it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, like, like I do a lot of. So you have a lot of readers, because I noticed I seen a lot of This is like Comic Con, right? And this is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
people that support. Yeah,
yeah. I have a lot of fans, but it's a lot, but it could be a lot more. So
right.
it's like there's like, let's say there's a pool of like a million people out there, right? I probably only
Yeah.
tap the potential of maybe like 1% of that pool. I think, in terms of being able to of people, maybe even not a percentage, 1%, maybe like 0.5% of the potential of the people who would be interested in reading my books. So I feel like, even though there's a lot of people who buy my books, that like I still have like a long way to go before like I reach the potential of what I can reach in terms of audience size.
Well, I made like this reel. Check it out.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Newton Lilavois. I'm the creator of KISHA Demon Eater. I'm here at Anime NYC 2023. Stop by, tell you whatever.
Yo, I'm excited to be tabling in the largest comic convention of my hometown. If you're at New York Comic Con this week, make sure you stop by my table D44. Grab a copy of the award-winning Crescent City Monsters, KISHA
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So,
Did I create the last one?
oh,
Or that
huh?
that last one doesn't look familiar. Like, did I create that one? It's like, or
Yeah,
was
I think so.
it
Yeah.
post?
That's the
Okay, yes,
that's the
yes.
demon hunter, the demon eater.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look at a post and I create so many that I'm like I forget that I created it. But yeah. But yeah,
Yeah, I put it. No,
hmm?
I was about to say I put it together. Like I seen like some. I went to like Demon Fury. I mean,
Oh, Dream
Dream
Fury, yeah,
Fury.
yeah.
Yeah, and I put it together. I took like some of the reels and
Oh,
just
okay,
put it
cool,
together.
cool, cool. I like the you added the sound effect at the end, the
Yeah,
laughing thing. Okay, cool,
yeah,
cool, yeah, yeah. All right, yeah, that explains it. I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's an interesting. Do you got more like stories like besides Keisha and the monster thing that you was telling me
Yeah,
about?
so I have another story, Young Monster Crew. So with that story, what was happening is just recently, like maybe like 6 months ago, I started watching like the classic monster stories like um with Dracula, the Mummy, um the Invisible Man, Frankenstein, and I was like, man, I want to write a story with like these guys, right? So I was like, okay, and I put it in the back of my head, and then, like I said, there's always just like a like and once I have an idea, in the back of my mind, start like, okay, well, how am I gonna do this? Like, how am I gonna implement this, right? So then that's when I came up with the idea of like, because I was like, okay, I wanted who's gonna be like, who's my audience? Who do I want to think? So I was like, I wanted to appeal to some like maybe a little bit of the younger crowd, like the YA crowd, the young audience, young adults. So I said, okay, cool. So I'll do a story about young monsters. So I was like, let me do a cool version of like what they would be like. So I came up with the young monster crew, um, YMC. So I was like, and I was like, all right, cool. So I was like, because I was like, for some reason I was like, to me it sounded like the Young Money. When I was like, it sounds like Young Money. It's like kind of like inspired by like when Young Money just started. So I was like, I wanted to kind of get that feel like a bunch of young people who are just changing the game. Like kind of like
Right,
that feel. So I was like, yeah, let me call them Young Monster Crew, and it's gonna be like a younger version, more younger, hipper version of like the vampire Frankenstein and the werewolf. So I came up with that story, and the idea behind it was, like I said, just the reinvention of the classic monsters that you have, or not the reinvention, I should say, just the reimagination, my reimagination, I should say, because it's been done a few times. It's not like I'm the first one to ever think about it, but my reimagination of these characters, in a way that I thought was like. if I was, a teenager, or if, when I'm younger, like what I think would be cool. So this is what I came up with. I was like, all right, cool. Let's do this with the characters. The mummy, he's wrapped up, and he's got like like the strands are like living, and they could grab things for him. And he's like, instead of an Egyptian prince, he's a Nubian prince, right? So
Okay. I think
and
I seen that one. I came
yeah,
across. I seen. Yeah.
like the Nubians were really um culturally close to the Egyptians, and they also mummified their people, and they had pyramids also. So and I really was excited about the idea of, okay, well, showing someone from the ancient black culture, who's a mummy. I thought I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then make him a prince. And then I wanted to so have uh Frankenstein. So the version of the Frankenstein monster I have, if you look at him, he's a he's a mixture of like different races. Like you'll see, like he's got a black face, then he's got partly black face, then he's got a white face, and then just to make the monster part of him complete, he's got like this green face. Like, so he's like yeah. So you can see he's different parts. So he's not like just black, all white, or like whatever. He's just he truly is mixed. And so I thought that was like a cool concept, because not only is he physically mixed, but mentally too. He's got memories from like other people, so he's more than just like one person. So I was like, okay, that's a super interesting take on Frankenstein, right? Like he shares the mind of more than one person. So he struggles with who he is, because now he's got to like meld his personality, his multiple personalities into one, or maybe just deal with his multiple personalities. And then I have a Japanese vampire. She's got the two short swords. I thought that was cool. And then I have a werewolf who's a demigod, and he's uh he's of Aztec origin. So I thought, like, yeah, I wanted like this to be like multicultural, because the story, like, they'll be traveling all over the world. And so I wanted to have characters who uh exist in different, not only like different times, right? Like the mummy, he's from ancient times, but also like
Yes.
from different places. So, and then I've got the Invisible Man. He's gonna be a really interesting character. I think people, when they first see him, they may not, they're kind of underestimate how interesting he is, but I'm gonna make him like a really interesting character. And so, like, these characters that I have, and are their main thing is like they band together to find these ancient artifacts, and each of them have their own reason why they want to find the artifacts. And so as they because they find this map to the artifacts, and so like they realize, like, well, once we gain these artifacts, each of us can fulfill our personal reasons um for looking for this, and we'll be able to do whatever we want to,
Yeah.
but or we'll get whatever we want to. But at the same time, while they're looking for these artifacts, the Van Helsing family is chasing them for these artifacts. So it's like you have these monsters who are being chased by monster heroes, monster hunters, but but you end up rooting for you ending up rooting for the monsters instead of monster hunters, in this situation. So it's going to be an interesting story. I'm excited about that. And the one thing I have to say though is, so a lot of people like they're like still waiting, like, oh, when's Crescent City Monsters coming out? Because it's been a while since I came out with the next issue of Crescent City Monsters. It's been almost 2 years, and then people are also waiting for the next issue of KISHA Demon Eater. And so, some people are like, well, you've got this new story. What about your other stories? You've got Young Monster Crew, but what about KISHA Demon Eater and Crescent City Monsters? When can we expect the next books for those? So the one thing I just want to say is be patient. So because what I'm doing right now is I'm building a world, right? And all these titles are going to be in one world and eventually be like interconnected. So it's like I'm building a world of a supernatural universe. So
Yeah.
so it's gonna be worth it to wait. Like, even though like there's separate titles and you want to see Crescent City Monsters come, um just be patient, because I'm building a world. It's taking me some time because I have limited time and resources. But once you see how everything is going to start to everything, I'm going to start putting things, where like you have crossover. Like Keisha Demon Eater is going to be making an appearance in Young Monster Crew. So it's going to be an interconnected world where things are really interesting. So for those waiting for like Crescent City Monsters and Keisha D, me, just please be patient. You know, we're working as fast as we can, but at the same time, we're building this world for you. So um, it's
Are
gonna
you the?
take.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask. Are you the only writer, or do you like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Currently,
um
I'm the only writer for the stories. In the future, I can see working with other writers, but first I need to set the baseline for the universe,
right.
so that way, like, I set enough of a baseline where if I did have other writers, that it would be easy for them to say, okay, well, this is based on the story so far. This is where I should take the character, or this is what I should do, or maybe this is what I shouldn't do with the character. So I just want to build enough of that, so like if that would be possible. Right now it's not possible. I don't think it's possible to have like another writer come in and just help me with do like the story, because I have like a certain vision and of where things should go, and so I just want to keep that vision, and then once I feel like that's solid enough to build off, then I wouldn't mind adding more writers. But like I said, that's probably like like maybe like 3 to 5 years away before I even think about adding working with other writers.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, do you see like Keisha? I could see it like in a big screen, or like in a anime or something type of thing, manga type of thing. Cause they got like they got something kind of related to that, like a little bit, and especially with manga and stuff, where
Yeah,
they got characters fighting demons and all this crazy stuff. I remember there's this animation. It's called Ninja Resurrection, and it's about this dude. I mean, it was a prophecy that some some chosen one was supposed to be another Christ, but it was like certain events would kind of change him, and he gonna become Satan. And it was like these ninjas. It was they at the time, like it was like supposed to be like a Ninja Scroll sequel or something like that, but it wasn't. It was like, I don't know. You seen Ninja Scroll, but what
yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, yeah, it's been a
yeah,
while.
like he was fighting the demons. So
Mm.
like so he had to fight. He had to fight. like it takes to the place where Christianity first settled in Japan and stuff like that. And so,
Okay.
the European settlers, they start coming slowly, but it was like a prophecy where Satan comes and he's supposed to be like the Christ and stuff, but it's crazy, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. I don't want to be rambling and stuff, but I could see that as like a manga or somewhere like a movie or a TV series or something like that. That'd be cool. Like I could see that.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, I would love that. And I get that a lot. From both Keisha Demon Eater and Crescent City Monsters, and you know, in fact, when Crescent City Monsters came out, people kept telling me like I could see this like as a movie, like from the very
Yeah,
beginning, which is great. In fact, there's been a couple of times where people have reached out to me to make it a movie. There was a Canadian production studio that had reached out to me about uh shopping Keisha, not Keisha, I'm sorry, Crescent City Monsters around to make it a movie. But that didn't work out. And then there was a Hollywood director who had reached out to me about making Crescent City Monsters a movie. Um, so he was working on shopping that around, but the whole process of that takes some time. So like even though when somebody reaches out to you and they say, hey, we like your property and we want to help you shop around Hollywood. First, from what from even before like that happened, I read about like situations like that, and from firsthand experience, usually it's hard to get anything done, right? Because like that's just like that's not even like the NBA draft. Like
right,
when somebody like approaches you and like say, "Hey, I want to get your stuff shopped around in Hollywood." That's like you being in college basketball and still playing, right? You haven't even reached the draft yet. That's like, so it's not even like a major step, because it's crazy, because it's like at the same time it is like, wow, somebody who has the ability to make this into a movie has reached out to me, and there's a possibility that it can become a movie, is
right,
incredible, right? But at the same time, it's like when you look at the steps it takes to become a movie, um that's like I said, that's not even like the draft, the like a draft like the NBA draft. That's like that's before the draft, because before then they gotta take your story, they gotta package it up, and when
yeah,
by package, that's like saying, okay, we're gonna have this propose like this actor with this director, and we're gonna frame it this way, and they write out like how they're gonna break your story up, and usually the way they're gonna present the story isn't exactly the way you wrote it, and a lot
right.
of times,
Yeah,
as
that's
even if you when you agree to this, like you don't necessarily have a lot of input. Like it's crazy because you would think like, well, I'm the creator, I'm going to demand that I have creative input. You could do that, but for the most part, like it doesn't even work out that way. Like even Robert Kirkman, when they first did Walking Dead, um it's not like they were like, hey, Mr. Kirkman, do you wanna do you how do you think this should go? No, they write their own version of what your story is, right? And so
yeah,
then they write that, and once they create this package, then they say, okay, here's what we want to do, here's our proposal. Then they go to around to different like Hollywood studios and see if they're interested in the story, and like that's pretty much like kind of like the draft, like entering the draft, right? Um, but then like with the draft, there's a chance you won't get selected, right? like so like so like a lot of times, like when people start pitching these stories or packages, these things, like you just don't get selected, right? Like the studios will pass. But like, let's say you do get selected, right? Now studios are like, okay, I'm interested in the story. So now that's like, like you're just like you've been selected for the draft. And but now it's like, okay, you've been selected, but you don't know if you're, unless you're like a real like a top notch selection, first round pick, you
Yeah.
don't even know if your movie's gonna be made, just because Hollywood says, hey, we're interested in this. They could be like, hey, we're interested in this, sit on it and do nothing, absolutely nothing with, with the story.
Yeah.
So it's like, getting drafted, going to a team and sitting on the bench and not playing. Right. That's pretty much it. So like they can like, buy your story, and it never sees the light of day. And so like there's different levels
Yeah.
to it. Like, so, and
That
I
happened to
mean,
Stephen King also
yeah.
with
Oh yeah.
the Shining and stuff like that. Yeah,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
there was certain things that the director he changed certain things and around, and it didn't really go according to what Stephen King wrote, and he didn't really like it, that he didn't really like how I think, what was his name, the director, Stanley Kubrick, something like that. I
It's
forgot.
Kubrick. Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
So yeah, I mean, again, I'm taking a long way to answer the question, but yeah, so yeah, there's been people who've shown interest in the story, but like I said, it's a long road for your story to get to Hollywood. It's like, for especially, like I think comic book creators, if for it to actually make it to the screen
yeah,
is incredible. So like, even like you got to think about it this way too. Like if you see an independent creator and his comic book gets made, and you're a fan of it, and you're like, man, I love the book, but the movie was um that's understandable. But at the same time, just appreciate the fact that his book is made it to the big screen, because that's like I said, that's like a really hard road and long road sometimes
yeah,
um to take. So it's like making it, just getting there is almost impossible. So seeing your favorite indie book in the movies, even if you end up not really enjoying it as much as you think, just enjoy the fact that it actually made it there. Because the road there is really long and difficult to get to.
yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming. I have this. It's something I have to do, so I can't really stay long. But I really
Yeah.
appreciate you, giving your time and telling me about how you started with Keisha, the Demon Eater, and your other projects. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's hard for me to keep my answers short. I just like
nah, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Cause I gotta talk to somebody. That's why, I gotta talk to somebody soon. I've kind of made like an appointment or something like that. So
yeah,
I ain't
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
do it.
No problem. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I don't want to keep you any longer. Like I said, big shout out to my artist Gene Carlo Bernal. If you guys can follow me at Dream Fury Comics. I'm not sure if it's coming up on the thing, but
I'm gonna
that's
put the link on there. I'm gonna make sure to put the link on
Okay.
after we film. But
Yes.
thanks, man. I really, no doubt, man. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Thank, thanks, man.
All right. Peace, man. Peace, y'all.
Yeah.
Talk to you.